Give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me begin by expressing our sincere appreciation to you, Mr. Foreign Minister, for presiding over this important debate. We also thank USG Fletcher, USG Bahus, ICRC President Madam Agar, Madam Suripto, for their detailed and insightful briefings. Crisis of compliance with international law, including international humanitarian law, the question of impunity, and the imperative of justice and accountability without politicization, selectivity, and double standards, in our view, were the key common messages from these briefings, and we commend them for their clarity and objectivity. Mr. President, the protection of civilians in armed conflict is a binding obligation under international humanitarian law. The rights to life, dignity, and security must remain sacrosanct, even amidst the horrors of war. The Secretary General's report makes for grim reading. In 2024, over 36,000 civilians were killed across 14 conflicts, and more than 122 million people were forcibly displaced. Today, with over 120 armed conflicts raging globally, we witness rising attacks on homes, hospitals, schools, water systems, and humanitarian workers, denial of humanitarian access, and the emergence of AI-powered weapons that kill without conscience. From Gaza's ruins to Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, from the camps of Sudan to the streets of Haiti, civilians are not collateral damage. They are the epicenter of these tragedies. Mr. President, the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir have endured over 75 years of systemic violence and repression under Indian occupation. More than 100,000 Kashmiris have lost their lives, thousands disappeared without a trace, women have been subjected to sexual violence, and generations of children have grown up behind barbed wires and bunkers. In gross violation of international law and humanitarian norms, over 900,000 Indian occupation forces continue to use excessive and indiscriminate force, extrajudicial killings, and collective punishment in what is one of the world's most militarized zones. Plans to alter the demographic composition of the Indian occupied territory are being pushed by the occupying authorities in violation of UN Security Council resolutions on Jammu and Kashmir and the Fourth Geneva Convention. The people of Jammu and Kashmir await the fulfillment of their right to self-determination as enshrined in numerous Security Council resolutions. Just weeks ago, Mr. President, between 6th and 10th May, India committed blatant aggression against Pakistan, launching unprovoked missile, air, and drone strikes under false pretenses and baseless allegations in flagrant violation of Pakistan's sovereignty and the UN Charter. Civilian areas, including homes and mosques, were deliberately targeted by Indian bombs, resulting in the deaths of 40 civilians, including 7 women and 15 children. I repeat, 15 children, and injuries to 121 more, including 10 women and 27 children. In contrast, Pakistan's response was responsible, measured, targeted solely at military installations and in line with our inherent right to self-defense in accordance with the UN Charter. Mr. President, in Gaza, 2 million people, 90% of the population, have been displaced. The numbers defy comprehension. Since October 2023, over 53,000 Palestinians have been killed and more than 121,000 injured. healthcare facilities alone have been attacked over 300 times. This is a humanitarian catastrophe of unprecedented scale to which this Council must respond. Pakistan views favorably the proposal for a focused resolution on the humanitarian situation in Gaza as proposed by Algeria on behalf of the Arab group, and we stand ready to work with all Council members for early action in that regard. Mr. President, civilian suffering has been acute in other conflict zones too, from Afghanistan to Colombia and DRC to Sudan, South Sudan, Syria, Yemen, and Ukraine. The list is long. In 2024 alone, over 280 million people faced acute food insecurity in conflict-affected regions, and more than 870 healthcare workers were killed or injured in 20 countries. Protection must extend beyond civilians to include journalists, humanitarian workers, and UN personnel. The year 2024 saw the highest recorded casualties among UN personnel and humanitarian workers, an intolerable trend that must never be normalized. USG Fletcher quoted UNESCO regarding killing of 53 journalists last year. The number was much higher, actually, which unfortunately the UNESCO Secretariat has not properly reflected or condemned since the start of the Gaza conflict. Mr. President, wars today are not waged with bullets alone. Disinformation, often powered by AI, threatens civilian safety, inflames conflict, and undermines humanitarian efforts. To effectively protect civilians in armed conflict, we offer the following recommendations. First, ensure strict compliance with international humanitarian and human rights law, as well as relevant Security Council resolutions. We should do more to strengthen the protection of civilian mandates of UN peacekeeping missions. Second, hold perpetrators accountable. Impunity for grave violations must end. Third, prioritize the protection of populations under foreign occupation, including in Palestine and Kashmir. Fourth, uphold obligations under Resolution 2730 to protect humanitarian workers and UN personnel. Attacks against them must be treated as serious international crimes. Fifth, prohibit lethal autonomous weapons that remove human judgment from life and death decisions. Human accountability must remain central. Sixth, establish an international framework to counter disinformation, especially AI-generated content and hate speech in conflict settings. Seventh, address root causes of conflict through prevention, dialogue, and dispute resolution. True protection begins before the first shot is fired. Mr. President, Pakistan reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the protection of civilians in armed conflict. We stand ready to work with all member states to ensure that no child, no mother, no civilian should ever pay with their life in a conflict. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for the statement.